that there's a lot of staccatos. It says sempre staccato, which means always staccato. Even though he only marked it in the first measure, it applies throughout. The other direction that I noticed was leggero, which means light. So this tells me that we want a light, bouncy, happy articulation. To achieve that staccato, I think bum. So in slow motion, my staccato is going to sound. So each note has a beautiful taper, but it's done so quickly that it achieves bum. Even slower motion as to what that staccato would sound like is. So you can hear a clearly defined start to the note and then a rounded taper, and that's going to give it, even up to tempo, the bassoon bounce, as I call it. Let's see, the other thing that I noticed right away with this one is that there's lots of half-holing and flicking. So the notes that we half-hole, F sharp and G, a really good way to practice this is just to do some octave drills. Every time you practice before you play this etude, warm up on octave drills on F sharp, G, and G sharp or A flat. So what that simply is playing the low octave and then slurring up to the higher octave. So for F sharp, and F sharp requires a relatively large half hole, the largest of all the half holes, the most open. So if you hear it cracking, it might be that your tone hole is too covered, so you need to open it more. G is going to be right in the middle. So slightly more closed than F sharp. Hopefully you do this already, but I am a big believer in the resonance key for G. I have some students who don't use it, and it's just out of tune. So if you add this, it really helps make the G in tune. And it's not that hard, just a pinky. So I'm a big believer in the resonance key for G. A flat or G sharp is going to be the smallest amount open for half hole. So very tiny opening. And again, if you hear the G sharp cracking, it very well could be that the tone hole is too open. So it's very small differences, but doing these octave drills is a really good way to train that muscle memory. Flicking, we're going to flick notes A, B flat, B natural, C, and usually D. That one is kind of a case-by-case scenario. So flicking or venting is these keys up here to get it to go up the octave. So for A, it's going to be the one right here in the middle. And again, we can just warm up with these octave drills. And these ones I'll do tongued, just to demonstrate that. So doing this exercise, it takes about 5 seconds. Every time before you practice, I'm really listening. Did my octave crack? Was it in tune? And fixing it, if needed, is going to help make this etude a lot easier. I teach, especially in a piece of music like this where the note values are pretty short, eighth notes, I teach to hold down the flick key, hold down these keys for the entire duration of the note. The reason I do this is that I find if you're thinking too much about, oh, I'm just pressing it at the beginning of the note and releasing, it actually doesn't get pressed at all, and therefore it doesn't do its job. So when I'm flicking, I'm thinking about pressing it down for the entire duration of the note, and that will eliminate cracks. I'm a big believer, if it sounds better, do that. Do what sounds good. And cracking it's just something that it's easy to get rid of if we're aware of it. And so we can get rid of it quite easily by being deliberate about flicking. So Some practice strategies for this one, it's a little more technical, so it's just going to require some woodshedding, are to take out the upper notes. So we're just going to eliminate the trouble of half-holing and hooking and only play the architecture, the low notes. So I'll just do the first phrase so you can hear what that would sound like. Things I'm going to think about are achieving my bum staccato and creating a musical line even in just those lower notes. You can practice the whole etude this way. I would recommend even doing this for an entire week and just getting really familiar with just those low notes, giving them a little more weight and emphasis. The next thing that I would do to practice this is put my metronome pretty slowly, maybe quarter note equals 60, and do lots of different rhythms. This is such a great way to practice because it keeps this interesting. I mean, you're going to be working on these etudes for several months, and the more ways that we can change it and make it different, it's going to keep it interesting. So for my students, sometimes I assign them, okay, this week you are going to be practicing dotted 8th, 16th rhythm, and that would sound like this. And then we can reverse it, so we have 16th dotted 8th, which would sound like this. That one is usually a little bit trickier, and if you're having trouble with getting that rhythm exactly right, you can even just practice the subdivision, so playing straight 16ths, it'll sound like this. There's lots of studies that show the more ways we change things, the better it's going to stick in our brain. And also another added bonus that is if you do these rhythms, when you go back to just the plain 8th notes, it feels easy, which is always a good thing. Once you have it closer to being at tempo, so let's say your tempo goal was quarter note is 112, you can put your metronome on half tempo, so 56, and practice to the half note. And this is a great way to kind of wean yourself off the metronome. Hopefully you're doing lots of metronome practice, and it'll help you feel the bigger beats. So at half tempo, it's going to sound like that. Just a fun, another metronome game. Another great metronome game is to put the metronome on the off beat. So the ands of the beat, one and, is going to line up with the click. That would sound like this. So if we have 1 and 2. And these are just all ways to keep this interesting. There's a ton more, but those are just kind of some of my favorites of this. I wanted to just play these one more time for everybody, and if you